Well, I was born here, gratefully so. I moved away when I was 6, and I came back when I was 14 for the whole summer, and I spent all of my summers here just enjoying floating the dory and the shoals and watching all the sea life and the tidal pools and everything else. And it was a fantastic way to spend the summers.
Sandy Point has a long and varied history. It's on the west coast of the island of Newfoundland. It's in an area called Bay St. George. In the 1700s, it was a haven for smugglers and pirates and so on. By the early 1800s, Sandy Point was actually the major center along the west coast of the island of Newfoundland. Now, of course, Sandy Point, for all that time, was just that, a point, and it's only become an island since the 1950s, when a major storm washed out a part of the narrow isthmus that connected Sandy Point to the mainland.
Sandy Point was the largest settlement on the west coast, and I guess there was probably a couple of thousand people living here at the time. But it was a working fishing community at that point. There were never any roads over here. There was never any hydroelectricity. It was the old-fashioned wood stoves and the kerosene lamps. And as a person coming back from the big city, it was like going back 30 years. And I spent every summer until I started working for a living. And then it was a couple of years after that I came back, and the people had moved away and everything was starting to deteriorate.
Where once stood a vibrant town with 2 churches, many houses, now is completely abandoned. Basically, nature is taking the island back over. Well, the coastline of Newfoundland is 95% rocky shore, rocky cliffs. Less than 5% of the island consists of sandy beaches. So a large barrier beach like Sandy Point has things in it like salt marshes and sand dunes. And of course, the species associated then with those habitats are generally uncommon or rare around most of Newfoundland.
You think there's so much nature here, why preserve it, you know? It's all around you. The more you've got, like here, unique that you cannot have development. It's protected for people to come over and have picnics or walk the beaches, or people that come from here be able to come and exercise your memory and so forth.
I first met Bill Martin in 2007 when we held a volunteer event. Bill brought forward some of the images that he had drawn and talked about what Sandy Point meant to him. And since then, Bill has helped us identify landowners on Sandy Point, which is a very difficult thing to do, seeing as nobody lives here anymore and the families are scattered amongst many communities and provinces across Canada. Our long-term plans are to keep these properties basically the way they are. So we've been working here since 2004, and so far we've acquired 55 acres. And our hope is that in the future there will be some protected areas designation on the island as a whole, which would protect the entire ecosystem.
I guess I am an artist. I've earned my living for years at that. And if I have one regret, it's that when I was living here in the summers, that I didn't go around and photograph every little thing that was in the sand, or every building, or every wind charger, or the older people that were sitting and laughing and joking with you. And I took it for granted that everything was going to be here next summer just like it was last summer. Now, the rest of the world we tend to take for granted too. But unless you preserve it and keep it that way, there will be a time where you can't walk along the shore. You can't enjoy the water. The more you take for granted, the less it's going to be there next year. And somebody has to look out for that and protect that.